Stories with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. I have yet another beautiful guest with me today, Promise. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm doing well. Good evening or good afternoon from Nigeria.
Welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you today. So let's jump into this and please tell us a little bit more about yourself. We know you're from Nigeria, but have you always been there? Were you born there? And anything else you like to tell us before we jump into the beautiful topics we have today?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that it's such a privilege and an honor to be here. I've known Ella a while. I love what you do like greatly. Your mindset coach, and there's someone that is invested in what you do. So I appreciate you a lot. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
So my
you're
name is
welcome.
Promise Gabriel. Thank you so much. My name is Promise Gabriel Francine. I am a Nigerian, born Nigerian, always been in Nigeria. I've never traveled out. This year, I'm hoping I will for something outside. Hopefully, for now, I've never traveled out. And I'm a resilience and trauma-informed coach. I read for my degree, read microbiology, and I switched into trauma 4 years ago, roughly 5 years ago. And I'm currently on my master in public health. One of the reasons why I took pivot because of my own lived experiences and then the experience of people around me. I realized that I have always lived with something I couldn't name. Always this issue around me emotionally, and I saw everybody else do it until I became an adult and I decided I was going to deal with it. Right, and that's how I got into and then I started teaching resilience and I started developing communities. Currently, I'm a community manager. I I facilitate communities around trauma-informed care, and the rest of it. So much about me, but for now, that's the core thing I do. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much for being here. And honestly, I've been watching your posts too, and I was just admiring how much dedication you put into it and the things that you do and everything. I always see you, right? So when somebody keeps coming up and you see they're committed and they have that persistence and continuation, I said, why not bring you on? Let's talk about what you do, and this way we can help the world, right? So. Thank you also for being here. And I'd like to get into more depth in regards to what you do. So please tell me, what was that defining moment perhaps in your life that led you to step into that resilience and trauma-informed coaching? Was it something specific?
Okay, how- I mean, not a specific moment or a specific event. I'll just say, mm, I woke up one day and then 5 years to being 30. That was 2020. I'm currently 31. So around 2020, during the COVID pandemic, that was a period in my life that was kind of reflective for me. And being someone that I grew up in an African setting where at a certain age you should be married, at a certain age you should be working, you should be independent and all that. And I realized that the age had passed and I was going to ask different questions from what I used to ask about myself. That was when I realized that there was more to living, and there was more to life. And then there were patterns in my life that I was unconsciously repeating. The same things I had complained about the adults I was growing up with, same things I saw myself doing. So it was kind of a reflective moment for me. Well, before then, I have always been in the self-development space, doing sharing, teaching. I've gone into finance, into crypto, and a lot of other things. That period for me was like an aha moment. And I had to ask myself, I said, am I going to be repeating the same patterns I grew up seeing? I'm going to now be the person to name these things, call it out, and start giving the solution, not just for myself, for my family, my community. And was when I decided to travel. It was 2020 was around my last in school in microbiology. I told myself I was either going to switch into psychology, health, and thank God I could get my master's in public health, and that's what I'm currently doing. So for me, I think that was really the key word for me, and it's been an amazing journey. It's not really been easy, right? Coming from an environment where people don't necessarily think that you should mean this thing. People don't necessarily think that teaching resilience is something, because it's not something you can see or feel or touch. But so that was the period for me.
That's beautiful. And I love how you're talking about that awareness, the shift, and realizing those patterns that we have and the willingness to actually change them. Because a lot of times we see the patterns, but we really don't do much about them. We just keep, maybe we'll do it once, twice, and then we forget about it and we're right back where we started from. So I love that awareness and that shift that you went through. That's really beautiful. So maybe for those that who may not fully understand what those being a trauma-informed coach truly means in your work, can you tell us a little bit about that in depth?
Okay. I mean, there's so much about trauma online, from cliches to myths to things that are true, right? So thank you for that question, because when we begin to talk about trauma, there's so much involved. But in the most basic term, trauma is just an emotional wound that people carry right from experiences. In my own world, we define trauma as a normal reaction to an abnormal event. Sometimes you don't necessarily, that event doesn't necessarily um that reaction, sorry, is not necessarily noticed by you. You just realize that you've adjusted to living with something that is abnormal. I was a resilience coach before I started my space. And I later realized it's actually, one of the tools for healing, right, from trauma. Trauma healing is actually resilience. And boy, that was when it gets my whole attention. It's resilience and trauma. They are just resilience and trauma healing are just the same thing with different words and then different perspectives and then different scenarios where you can actually, put them or use them. So being a trauma-informed coach is realizing that even while I teach people resilience, I'm teaching them from not just the place of mindset building, but emotional building, realizing that your mind is as your emotions are. So you cannot have a healthy mind. I'm also a mental health advocate. I mean, the whole thing are just intertwined for me. So you cannot necessarily have a healthy mind without having a healthy emotion and being able to name your emotions, being able to call your emotions they are, being able to reframe experiences you feel, and all what makes you resilient at the end of the
Mhm.
day.
Beautiful. Thank you
I
so
was
much
able to
for
answer.
yeah, thank you so much for explaining that. Um, so what would you say are some of the most common mindset patterns you see in people who feel stuck maybe in their struggles?
Hmm. Honestly, one of the common um and nice things I've seen is hopelessness. And for me, that was one of I had noticed in my life as a person, right? And then I had noticed in my family as well. The idea that you cannot help yourself.
Mhm.
And sometimes I I'm going to be as vulnerable as open, because shame and vulnerability too. So to leave the same things I teach. I'm going to be as vulnerable as I can be. Even in my own experience as a coach, there are days that I still feel that way. Like those voices, like we usually call it in my space, those voices still come, and then have to deal with them because healing is a process. Healing is not a destination, it's not a place you get to when you're there. It's that every day, and that's why I said that resilience is a very core to healing. Because what is resilience? Resilience is you being able to come back, say a setback, right? So healing is a journey, is that even when you fall short of the expectations you have of yourself or the promises you make of yourself, you're able to bounce back and tell yourself, I'm in a process, I'm a work in progress, right? So you bounce back, excuse me, you bounce back and then continue. So one of the patterns I really noticed was hopelessness. Like that insane idea, and this is the word insane because it's literally it has the ability to keep people stuck. Like that idea that you cannot help yourself. And for me, it's one of the most common on the round table sessions we've had, to healing sessions. The clients I've been privileged to attend to, it's the same thing I see. People believe that they cannot help themselves, that people believe that they are the source of their problems, but they are not the source of problems. And it's funny because when you look at it, for every problem you will ever encounter, wherever you see that wherever you see that is the source, most of the times that is always the source. People don't see it that way, and it's because we've grown up with different narratives, right? I mean, trauma is involved. You've been told certain things. You have to deal with low self-esteem. You have to deal with shame, and so one of the parts I really noticed is hopelessness, and then shame too. That's very common. One of the things that actually felt is silence, judgment, and secrecy. Those are just the three things that shame. If you're able to deal with those things at different levels, it will come to it.
Mm. Yes, and it's so true. Like, I went through that too, where I was always looking f well, as you grow up, you're conditioned a certain way, and then then that window opens up and you're like, wait a minute, like what is really going on? You have that moment, the aha moment, in a way that, maybe there's a different way of looking at it. But I felt like I still didn't think that I had the power to change or do things. I was under the impression that it's out there, the solutions are out there because it's just how it was. Like, you kind of get told to deal with things, move on, go ahead, life just happens and stuff like that. But when I realized that wasn't the case, that we are the creators of our own reality, like, I was like, wait a minute, like, you mean I can change? But at the same time, the patterns that we've carried for so long, or the ongoing loops we go through, um, we have to realize them, we have to be aware of them, and then the willingness to actually change them. So it's a really interesting topic here, and it's so big that we can't possibly cover everything on one episode. But yeah, I was also under the wrong impression when I was going through my youth and stuff like that. But I'm so glad that I am where I am, and just like you, our awareness has shifted. We therefore become better, like, understanding ourselves, and the world around us. It's not always what it tries to portray. So I've talked to so many people, and yeah, like, they lose hope. They're fed by the society that, this is how it is, deal, just suck it up pretty much, and they lose that hope. It is so true, and it makes me feel sad, just to see that, because there's so much we can do for ourselves. Um, yeah, so anyhow, we can talk about this all day. Um, but it's a beautiful space where we are at the moment, being able to talk about it, expand, and show people that there's so many solutions, out there. out there in the sense that the tools are out there, but we are the ones who have to do the work. And that was the
Yeah,
part of when I went into originally into coaching, I was like, oh, I'm the one who has to do that work. You're not gonna fix it for me?
yeah.
Yeah. Like we know it on the deep level, but then we still scratching the
Yeah,
surface, right? And I'm like, oh, I gotta do the work. All right, I get it. Yeah, sometimes we bury all these things and then we wonder why we're not shifting and things are not changing, right? But I want to jump into right now into the 365 days growth challenge that you're doing. What inspired you to create this and how those daily commitment change someone's life over time?
Hmm. Okay, I mean, just the thought of it gets me excited already because um I started the 365 days challenge 2020, and I started the challenge after I had resigned from my bank job. And then one day, I mean, I'm not the kind of person that usually has this moment because I'm strongly opinionated. Like I have my opinions and I stand on them. So even when I have intuition speaking to me, I have a way of questioning them, and I realize that those things are just all self-doubt in another term, right? So I have always questioned the reason why I was in the bank because I had no business being there. I love to talk about healing, and I've always loved to talk about mindset because at the core of my being, I believe that a healed mind is a fulfilled mind. Don't care how much you have financially, don't care what's your fame or how much power you have. If your mind is healed and you are proper upstairs, everything else will fall into place. That has been my core belief for the past 15 years plus, right? So I had to start asking myself, what are you doing in the bank? When that voice comes up, I just have to shut it down. One day, I was sitting down, it was a morning, there was nobody at the banking hall. And it was like someone walked up to me, like I had a vision or something. And the person was like, what are you doing here? How are you contributing to humanity where you are? And I don't know what happened, but the next day, I just took a 5 days leave from work. And I told myself, within these 5 days, if and figure out the reason why I want to still be in the banking sector, I will. If I don't figure out the end of it, right? And after that 5 days, what came following my resignation letter. And I didn't resign because I had a job waiting for me. I didn't resign because I knew what I was doing. I resigned because I knew that I could be more.
Mm.
So when I did that, I now started the 365 challenge. I think I started this like November. And I told myself I want to see who I will become these days. And while I was reading, I realized that the things we say, can you still hear me?
I think it cut out. Can you repeat the last little bit?
Just had a, so can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I over the years, that was not the first time I was reading that the things you say to yourself have a way of shaping your perspective about yourself. And I have always used words of affirmation in the book. I believe in manifestation. I believe that if you say you want something and you actually want something and you stick to your goal and you set structures, I think you will get it. I believe that the universe answers people who have a strong desire towards something. I have always believed that. I read the book Think and Grow Rich, I
Mhm.
think some 15, 20 years ago. And that was where the whole mindset around manifestation began. And I told myself, I want to see who I will become in the next 365 days. I mean, I didn't have anything in mind. I didn't have anything structured. I just wanted to bet on myself. Boy, it was the best decision I have ever made in my life because that was when I realized things. That was when I realized I could do more. was when I got into SDGs. I decided I took on the mental health advocacy thing. I've been doing it since then. I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people across continents, different continents. I built reasonable, meaningful relationships, and I stretched myself. I used to be afraid of it's not something that I'm very proud of saying. I used to be people are afraid of failure, but I used to be afraid of success, such that when something begins to look good, I intentionally sabotage.
Mm.
And I, I, I realized the pattern. I started working on it a whole lot. So that was what both said. This is this challenge, a one-man thing. And today, I have over 24 people been taking on the challenge with me this year. And for one person, and one person from Egypt, and I don't really say her name, but she tells me that each day I drop the affirmation is more like I had a conversation with her the night before, and I decided to drop an affirmation that speaks to her personally. Okay, maybe it's just the universe that brought you, and then God just wants to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
So it's been an amazing journey. So the backbone, the 365 days challenge is using words to change your life. That the same way your mind was programmed towards failure, the same way your mind was reprogrammed to entertain shame and low self-esteem, is the same way that you can use words and reprogram your mind back to what you want it to be.
Hmm.
So understanding that we are the author, we are the source, thought and the source. You can also recreate your life using words.
Yeah,
So that's the
exactly.
backbone of this challenge.
Very powerful. And I want to go back to something you were saying about affirmations. And I see this a lot, and people will comment, oh, affirmations don't work, and this and that. You know what? And of course, you may think it will work. And if you think it will work, it will. And if you don't think it will not work, it will not. You're right either way. But the thing is, a lot of people say these affirmations, and then it's like all those famous popular shorts that come up. We do those affirmations and then we kind of like forget about it. Then we get into our old patterns and then it's like digging up that seed. Oh, is it working? Oh, it's not working. And it's like a yo-yo, people keep doing that thing and then they wonder why things don't work. Of course, they're not going to work when you keep doubting it, when you have fear behind it, when you have all those low level emotions behind all that. And then we get the moments of inspiration. One great thing will happen, and you're like, yay! But then you want another one, and then because your level of belief in it, maybe it's not high enough, and all the fears and all those low emotions creeping, then you have another thing that doesn't work. See, I told you so, Like I hear this all the time. And I love that in a way that because it helps me to clear my because we're all human. We have our moments of doubt too and fear. They do come up,
Yeah,
like you mentioned earlier. We're not perfect, and life has will give us experiences, but it's how we respond to them, right? I mean, through my like when people talk to me, it's like, oh my gosh, you're like a different person now compared to like a few years ago. I said, what, really? It's like, yeah, I've been watching you. And it's like, oh, I said, you used to react to this, now you respond. I'm like, I do. I said, well, thank you, like you feel so good because sometimes we don't realize those shifts, but they do happen. But the main thing
yeah.
is you have to stay consistent when you want to change things, um and a lot of people don't stay consistent. The minute they don't see something happening, they say, oh, it doesn't work, and they go back to that same loop. So it's a really beautiful topic once again, and I love the 365 challenge you've been doing. um and a lot of people do struggle with the consistency. So what mindset shift helps people stay committed even when they don't feel motivated? What would you say?
Okay, so this afternoon, I mean, I think 2 hours before. And I realized that um, some of my community members, like I told you, we have the second, because this is my second year with Christian Exchange. And I noticed that, this time the enthusiasm has often gone down, and and it's normal because my own personal journey, first few days, energy is high, let's do this. Especially the beginning of the year, there's a New Year resolution and everybody is on high speed. Become the first month, the second month. By the third month, it becomes a struggle. And you struggle to pause, you struggle to keep it to yourself. And I told them, I said, sometimes when you get so engaged, you forget the reason why you started. Honestly, in my consistency journey, one thing that has helped me to combat when it gets tough, ask myself what really matters, what keeps me grounded. Personally, for me, there are certain things I do that no matter what rattles me outside the world, I will still feel grounded inside. But once those things are not in place, my whole world shatters. So I asked them because even before I had over 100 applications for this 35 student, but I wanted a smaller size because for everyone that is on this challenge with me, I wanted a personal relationship. I wanted to be able to check on them, coach. They were going to have access to me. It will not be like a client-based relationship thing. They were going to have access to me more like unpaid coaching. So that was what I wanted. That was the structure. I reduced it down to 25 of us. One person is absolutely busy, and that makes us 24. So I told them, you have to understand the things that you needed. If you came into this challenge because you saw it as an opportunity to become a better person for yourself, this challenge is not what pays you your income. This challenge is not a quick read scheme or not a financial structure. This is you trying to build yourself, not just emotionally, to be able to bet on yourself. If it means anything to you, consistency will come easy because you know that it is a core part of you. So for me, I mean, one of the things that's understanding that this challenge is what keeps me grounded and is what keeps everything else, in check. That if I wake up in the morning, I have times in the morning where I do, because we have daily goals, we have daily actions, things we meditate on. We have the affirmations, which is supposed to be something we memorize every day. So these things actually keep me grounded. So while the external world battles me, while I have to go out into the world and deal with shame and deal with judgment and deal with trying not to max, trying to fit in, when my core is grounded in in hope, in positivity, in knowing who I am, when I have a strong self-identity and face forward.
Mm-hmm.
So if consistency is an issue for you, understand why you're doing this thing in the first place. And that's why, I mean, the 365 challenge is not just wishing, just coming to a challenge. It is not just any kind of challenge. It is you betting on yourself. Is you wanting to see who you can be on the other side of your fears. Is you coming face to face with the things you have always run away from. Is you being vulnerable with yourself, asking yourself certain questions. And that is why it is a daily challenge. Because the things that become over the years was a result of repetition. Whatever it is that you're dealing with that you really don't like is there and is strongly there because of repetition. That is why you're going to having repetitive encounters with growth focused minds.
Wow, that's wonderful and powerful, of course. And I want to go back to the moment when you were talking about that moment when you knew exactly what you wanted to do and you had that feeling from inside. See, a lot of people miss that intuitive hit where, you know what, I'm gonna resign from this, not because I hate or whatever, it's just because I know there's something better for me out there. Many people get that spark of intuition, but they don't follow it, because their logical mind starts overriding. Oh, you silly! Who do you think you do? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're putting me into something, unfamiliar. And some people follow through, like yourself, which is beautiful, and some people they don't. They get scared and so on. So I just wanted to applaud that because it is so important to be in alignment with that as well. So thank you for sharing that as well. I want to jump into, because we're running out of time slowly. I want to jump into the book, because you're also an author, I understand. Adversity to Advantage. Is that a piece you're still working on? Is it already published? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so yeah, it's something I'm still working on. I mean, authors like you didn't tell me that you could be writing a book and you could just keep changing the themes. So it's been an interesting journey. So it's really about my life. So someone had discouraged me from writing it. They're giving me um other topics to write about, go to the market. Said, hey, I mean, if I could resign from my job and not knowing, writing a book that is on my heart is what I'm going to. The market will just have to adjust. So it's really about my life and how I came into mindset coaching and how the journey has been for me, believing in myself, um, um, being raised in trauma and dysfunction and fear, to being who I am, the journey between and the rest of it, depression episode, and a host of things. Because through this journey, I have learned one thing, still scares me as a person, that the source of, and I think I've mentioned it, one of the questions you see, the source of our problems are usually the source of our solutions. But we've been wired to believe that troubles and challenges are bad, right? So we don't sit down to come face to face with the things that rattle us. So when things come into our lives, the first thing we have to do is run away. I used to run away. Oh God, I used to be a good runner, right? So when it's difficult, I run, I escape. Anything that makes me escape, and I escape. I escape into food. I escape into trying to go out to party. Anything that makes me escape the things so on this journey, I have learned to sit down with the pain, sit down with, and that's where awareness came in.
It's cutting out. Sorry, dear.
You know.
Can you repeat the last sentence? It was there was no voice, sorry.
Okay. Oh, so things. The solution is within you. It's not outside you. Like I said, that's what the learning, teaching people to sit down, challenge, and create solutions for creators. Okay.
All right. So, that's a lot of great topics we've covered today. And I understand, like, I was also one of those people that in my mind I was, when something was of a challenge, I used to run. And sometimes it was a physical um thing I would do, and sometimes in my mind, and when I couldn't escape in my mind, I was somewhere else all the time, daydreaming, trying to run away from the problems. But you're absolutely right, we can keep running, but it's always gonna keep coming back to us. We're gonna keep repeating the loops. And I actually didn't understand that process when I was much younger, until I also stumbled upon, the teachings and Bob Proctor, rest his soul, Tony Robbins, and all these, you know, gurus. And I've read lots of books, but a lot of times, one thing I want to say, we read a lot of books, not all of us, but the ones that want to do personal development. But many times we really don't apply the things that we read, the tools. And then we wonder why we're still stuck, I would say. Because we get into that, yeah, we went from, hey, I want to do something about my life, into, hey, I'm doing something, in a sense, I'm reading a lot. All these things sound really good and everything. But then there comes a part sometimes we don't embody what we read, and then we can't move from this stage into the next one unless we embody the things that we read. And a lot of people say, well, I'm reading a lot. Oh, I read another book. I said, but what did you get from that book? Did you use any of the
Mhm.
books?
Did
Like
you-
the
mhm.
365 challenge. For some people, oh yeah, that sounds good. And then poof, off to the next thing. But they don't stop. We don't stop and work with those feelings sometimes. Like I myself have these feelings sometimes, they used to surface a lot. And I'm like, oh, and I used to, because when I was growing up, it was hard. Some things because they were too hard to feel them, I used to just bury them,
Yeah.
thinking, hey, I'm doing myself good. I buried them. I don't have to think. But what happens later in life, something will trigger it. Something will come
Oh,
up. And then you're like, what the heck? Like, I thought I was done with it. Oh, they come even stronger sometimes. And then if you
even
don't,
stronger,
yeah,
even stronger.
yeah, and if you don't attend to them, sometimes, yeah, it gets pretty ugly, I would say, So when I realized I started working with these things, and I talk about this too, to others, when I coach, I said, yeah, when I originally took Bob Proctor's coaching program, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta work with my feelings. What's up with that? Yeah, I was like, no way, I gotta work on them. Oh, so yeah, I had days when I cried, when I laughed. I was like, oh, it was like,
Absolutely.
okay. It was like a volcano, I would say, at some point. I was like, whew. Well, that feels good all of a sudden. And even Rhonda Burns, she talks about this in her The Secret movie and the book. When she talks about observe your emotions, work with them.
Mm.
And that's when I actually first time I think maybe heard it, but I never really worked with it either, right? It sounded good, but I didn't work with it. So the point is that it is really important to work with ourselves. Nobody else is gonna do it for us. We have to do the work. There's 101 tools or million tools out there, but we do have to take it on ourselves and work with us. So my question is, what kind of impact? And I can't wait. Actually, one more thing. I can't wait for your book to come out because I feel it's gonna make so much difference in this world. I think you have so much amazing things to share. Just talking to you, this half an hour is you have so much to offer. So I'll be waiting for your book patiently. So I know it's gonna come and it's gonna be a masterpiece. And
Amen. Thank you.
my second last question is, what kind of impact do you hope your work will leave on the world? And how do you want people to feel after experiencing your messages?
Okay. Um, Healing, and that's the only thing that comes to my mind when I think about do. Can you hear me?
Yep, yep,
Okay. So when I think about the work I do, whether it's in coaching practice, right, whether it's taking sessions, whether it's on the TEDx stage, whether it's one-on-one session, whether it's a conference, whether it's in church, one of the things that jumps to me is healing. Excuse me. I'm able to make people understand that whatever it is that they ever want in their life is resident within them, but they will never get. if they are ready to sit with themselves, if they are not ready to acknowledge the parts of themselves, requires them coming up to that place where that thing they want matches it. I don't know if it makes sense, but I hope it does. I believe that the mind is the seat of intelligence, and whoever you want to be in life begins from you. That is in every message that I teach, whether it's in trauma, whether it's in neurodivergency advocacy, whether it's in mental health advocacy, whether it's in resilience coaching. Your mind is the most important place in your life. You guard it, you hold it, you protect it, and then healing is possible. So one of the impacts I want to get after this, whether it's any opportunity I ever get on the world, healing people. I believe more than anything that when all of us as individuals, even in the world, have a healed mind, we will not have wars. We will not have wars. And then there are certain illnesses that are a result of broken minds. Yes. And I think it was 3 years ago I started taking studies on being a microbiologist. I said pivoting. I really wanted to know where I was going to, niche down to that be an intersection. And I realized that, okay, let's say illness like ulcer, one of the strong causes of ulcer is as a result of unforgiveness. So there are a lot of things that a healed mind can help you avoid in. It gives you peace internally, it gives you a healthy body. So more than anything, I want people to come to a place of healing. Healing in your mind, healing in your body, subsequently, of course, healing in your thought, healing in the things you say to yourself, healing from the patterns that have raised you, healing that you see possibilities beyond your current. Yes.
Amazing. That's beautiful. And one last question before we go. As you know, the name of the podcast is Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. How important do you think, and we touched a little bit on this, how important is it to set intention for the rest of your day in the morning?
Hmm. Very important. Very, very, very important because I'm not really a morning person, right? I will tell you this categorically. Some days I intentionally wake up in the morning to plan my day, then I go back to sleep to the day. That is how important it is for me. And it is important that you make your day intentional because apart from anything else, the world is such a noisy place. If you don't choose the things you listen to, the things you hear, the things you watch, and the things you want for yourself, you can end up being everywhere. So, this podcast is, I mean, the caption for the podcast is amazing, right? It's amazing. So you should wake up in the morning, and the first thing you want to do is plan your day. That's if you don't do it at night, right? So you want to be able to plan your day intention, and that word intention is because whatever you're not intentional about, you don't have. And when I talk about intention, I really give an example of if you're intentional about red cars, for example, and all you see in your mind is a car, do you know that somehow in the midst of people or you stand on the road, the only thing your mind begins to see is a red car? It's funny how the mind works. That's how
Mm.
that so it goes on to show that whatever you're intentional about in your life is what you see. So if you wake up in the morning and you want to have a good day, honestly, you got to because when you wake up in the morning, your mind is still fresh, open, your conscious is still willing and ready to receive whatever you give to it. I think you should be intentional about what you feed to it. So yes, it's very important. I'm grateful for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Promise. And I love your name, Promise and Gabriel, just like the angel. So I love that.
Yeah.
So thank you for being an angel on this podcast, and sharing all
Thank
your
you so
wisdom
much.
today. And we'll release this podcast shortly. And so follow us if you like to see more insights. And of course, follow Promise to see when her book is coming out. So we're waiting for that patiently. Till next time, guys, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. And thank you, Promise, for being my guest on the podcast. Take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome.